Hey, everybody, how are you? Welcome to this edition of Purpose to Pour, our third edition, our final edition. I'm so excited to have everyone in the building on tonight, in the room on tonight. If you have not had a chance to check out our first sessions, I had the pastors on, Pastor Cynthia Keel, Pastor Sean Marshall, and Pastor Carla Dare. Hello, Ashlyn. Hello, Jason. Thank you for being on. Thank you for commenting. Shamika, how are you? Last week I had worship leaders who were prophets, who are actually ordained prophets, and who were also artists. And we had a discussion about the importance of leadership and the importance of building structure and the importance of how that prophetic piece and that worship piece merges. So tonight I have some industry professionals with me on tonight, and I'm so excited to have them with me, and I'm going to introduce them shortly. Before I do that, if you have not registered for Purpose to Pour, listen, you have 5 more days to do so. God has led me to be instructed me to pour back in to creatives as I have always been doing, but specifically spend time pouring into creatives. I've been in the music ministry and music industry for a very long time. I'm not going to say how many years, but a very long time. And I want to pour back. So many of us say there's nobody in the veteran group that is pouring back, and that is not true. It is who are you looking to receive, and have you humbled yourself to be able to receive? Have you positioned yourself to be able to receive? So if you have not signed up, go to michaelweatherspoon.com. I have 5 master classes that are going to be pouring into you everything that I have learned. I've been at 3 some of the largest music ministries in the United States. Not one position did I have to apply for. God put me in position to be able to help. And I am looking forward to pouring back into you. So send it to someone. If you don't think you need it, there's somebody you know that needs it. Whether they're leading the prophets, they're leading the intercessors, they're leading the singers, they're leading the dancers, they're leading the musicians, they're leading the audio department. Pour back into somebody, send them to michaelweatherspoon.com so I can spend time pouring back into you. So listen, let's get started. I'm so excited to introduce these guests that have taken time to be with me on tonight, and share this on your platforms, share this to your department, share this to your teams. And the first person I want to bring on tonight is an amazing producer. And I want him to come on and just share a little bit about what he's doing. And you all know him. If you do not know him, you know his work. His music is in every church in America. There isn't one church in America, large or small, that has not been music ministry who's not been influenced by his work. And his hand has touched and made an imprint in gospel music. And when it's all said and done, his fingerprint is going to be etched in it. So I want to introduce to the room right now, Jamel Kimbrough. How are you doing, brother?
Thank you for having me on, man. Good to see your face.
Good to see you. Yeah, you're doing some amazing work. What's the latest project you're working on right now?
Well, man, and it's so crazy that you asked me that because just recently I took up a interim position at my church as executive director, and my juices are not flowing right now. So if you've been in a slump, you know exactly what I feel like.
Yes.
But I do have my hands in a lot of stuff right now. As far as artists, I'm finishing up Dorinda Clark Cole's album right now. Of course, Todd and I are always working on some music because he doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So that means I don't stop. You know what I mean? But I've got somebody special in the studio right now as we speak, and her name is Joanne Rosario.
Yes.
So if you're familiar with the More, More, More song with Fred, that was Fred's artist at one point. So I'm excited about that. Nia Allen. Just it's a lot's going on right now. So
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Jamel Kimbrough, he's one of the world's greatest gospel music producers. So we're excited to have him. Thank you tonight and sharing your expertise. The next person I want to bring on, she is um, everyone knows who this woman is. She is not hidden. She is not, uh, she's behind the scenes, but she's in front of the curtain as well. And she has done a lot over the years in strengthening artists, strengthening labels, and building culture. So I'm excited to have her on. An amazing woman, uh, Miss Tamil Curtis. How are you?
I'm amazing. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good. Can you tell
Good.
us a little bit about what you got going on right now?
Man, I wanted you to keep going. I was like, I need to hire Witherspoon to go with me. Like, that was the intro. For those who don't know me, my name is Tamil Curtis, known as Lady Tamil. I am the founder and CEO of the It's Lady Tamil Agency, which is a full-scale marketing firm, as well as the Ministry GPS, which
Mhm.
is a marketing firm that deals with helping nonprofits, churches, pastors, and people with personal ministries better establish their digital imprint online. I am also the general manager of Vegan Bay Music Group based in Houston, Texas, which is the proud parent company of an 18,000 square foot facility that I call the Mecca of Vegan Bay
Yes.
Studios. I am an author, a content creator. I'm the person that kind of like helps get you to where you need to where you need to go as far as ministry and marketplace coaching. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
That's amazing. This facility, we got to get down there. I've been hearing so much about this place, and I got to get down there to see this
Absolutely.
facility next time I am in the area. Tamil, I'm definitely coming.
Come on.
Thank you so much for what you're doing. This next person I want to introduce. Hello, Rashard. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for tagging some people. This next person that I want to introduce, um, I met producing some albums, and he was director of marketing with this deal that we had brokered. And one of the things that I love about this gentleman is his heart for creatives and the information that he has. He's willing and open. He does not treat people different based on who they are. You can be Kirk Franklin, or you can be a small quartet group in a west side of low end of town, and he treats you the same. He treats you with the same respect, same honor. He gives you the same information. Your project means just as much to him if it sold 1 million records or if it sold 10. And that was the thing that I loved about him. He was consistent, and he did everything that he could to assist me with that deal. So I want to recognize and bring on this man, and he's also an ordained prophet. So not only does he have a hand in the marketplace of the record industry and very knowledgeable, he has a word from the Lord. So I want to bring in Omega George on tonight. How are you, brother?
Brother, I'm good, man. Look at all of my people on this live, man. It's so
Yes.
good to see everybody and to feel this energy to be in this moment with you guys. It's good to be here. It's good to see you. Good to see everybody.
Great. So let's get started. We're about 13 minutes in, so let's get started. I want to open this up. I made a post today. I don't know if you all had an opportunity to see it, but I want to start there. You know, we have a lot of now. I'm not going to say that the industry is oversaturated. I think that was the wrong term. There's always been creatives and always been musicians and singers. We now have opportunity now from things going from analog to digital. Now everyone is their own artist. Everyone now has access, Everyone can release their own music, do their own merchandise, do their own distribution, do their own marketing. But I want to talk to these artists, those that particularly start in church and now are aspiring artists or are artists, of understanding that when you are an artist, you're not just perfecting your performance. That when you have a team, you have singers, you have musicians, you have producers, you are managing personalities, you are managing humanities, you are managing peoplehood, I should say. And you have to be prepared, and you have to have some leadership structure in place to be able to manage not only being a worship leader at a church, but managing being an artist, that you're responsible for them. Too many times we have it that they're responsible for your music, but in essence, you're responsible for the people that you're taking out on the road, that you're choosing to push your brand, that you're choosing to be responsible for the voice or the words or the language that God has given you to release. So give me some tools that you think that some of these that will be great for artists to have that are in this position.
Who started?
Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Great.
You never want to speak, over each other. So I always kind of wait till someone starts talking first. But I mean, that's a great, great, great question, Michael. I work with so many talented people, from big artists to indie artists that should be major artists. They're just not seen yet. But to start off and kind of answer your question, I think if you're an artist and you work in the church, you just need to know what space God has called you to. And what I mean by that is every singer is not an artist. And every artist doesn't uh belong in the church setting, and so those are two different careers in my book, and it's really hard to use two muscles, because the church has an expectation of your talents, and that don't always lend to who you are as an artist. And so I think the first thing artists need to do is get past the fact that you're talented. There's a lot of talented people. Find out where your space is. God, do I belong in the church? Is that as far as you want me to be? And that's okay. I mean, either one will always win in the end, because I'm a fan of kingdom work. That's what my email says. Kingdom mind for kingdom work. Because I feel like my work is just not for the four walls of the church. It's for the kingdom. And so that means every genre, whether they say Jesus' name or not. That's kingdom work in my mind. But I would say that to artists: find out where you belong, because you can be tugging against something that God has something for you. He may say this, but your desire is for this. And you're having a hard time being an artist working in the church with different expectations. And so I would start there, because if you don't get that right, you're going to be, going down a rabbit hole for the rest of your career. And I think you need to ask yourself, and you need to seek God, where do I belong?
Wow. Omega.
Listening to Kimbro, I think you did a great job giving us a summation. There were a few things that I heard that were very key for me. One is understanding. I think that oftentimes, as in any form of art, whether it is an artist or as a minister or in ministry, we don't have understanding. We have positions, we have opportunity, but we really don't understand the magnitude of why we've been placed where we've been placed. Or why we've been given the permission to exercise as we have. So one is understanding. The second thing you said that was very key was expectations. having an understanding of the expectation. If you don't have real relationship within the ecosystem or the church, the habitat, the space in which you are occupying, you're not going to be able to function and thrive, which is kind of what this whole moment is about, right? It's how to thrive in the music industry, and not just in the music industry, but in the ministry industry and in the industry as a separate entity within itself. Because I think that there's so many different pots within the makeup of what we do when it comes down to the gospel that gives us such a satiated space to occupy in. It's such a habitat to flourish and thrive in, that more often than not, we don't know or really understand the power of placement. And so the expectations are off. I think the next thing that you said that was very key outside of that is, again, understanding your ecosystem and habitat, understanding the people that you've been called to serve. If you don't know who you've been called to serve, you're going to be serving the Lord with gladness, but you're going to be failing people, right? And I think that a lot of times what we do is we have this anticipated expectation that when we come to the table to showcase and display our gifts and our talent, that we're giving God all of the honor and the praise, and we're failing to realize that we've been called to manage people. The reason why we've been placed in the position to lead and or to have a voice, whether it is in occupationally, whether it is from a career standpoint, when it comes down to serving outside of the infrastructure of a church, as an art or as an entrepreneur, the expectations and the ecosystems are very different. They're very broad. Although they cross collateralize, there's still a very broad place there, so space there. So you have to have a really, really in-depth understanding about where you belong and where you're planted. And the last thing, of course, is understanding marketplace, understanding if what I'm called to is just my local church, my local assembly, or if I'm called to serve other assemblies throughout the world. It just may not be from a national platform standpoint, or it may not be syndicated radio. Your space may be internet radio. It may be there's so many different spaces in which you can occupy and flourish and thrive within the music industry or within the marketplace as a whole. I just think that we become more niche specific and almost become bully-like when it comes down to church, because we feel like the church failed teaching us industry when it's only been responsible for teaching us the dynamics and the truth and the doctrine and the discipline of church. The preparation of taking us to the next dimension of understanding marketplace is we have to have people in position who also occupy in the marketplace. And I don't think we have enough leaders who are doing that. They're thriving as pastors and leaders, but not necessarily having enough background to give us the forwithal or the wherewithal to understand how to maximize and actually have impact in the marketplace.
Wow.
Thank you, Omega. Wow. Go ahead, Tamil.
I mean, I think that my brothers did it. But I want to say, before you can actually be successful managing, you have to be successful managing yourself. And so the first expectation starts with you. A lot of times when I sit down with artists, I'm the one that's going to be brutally honest with you, right? And so I know you want to give God glory. That's why we're here. But what is your expectation? And a lot of times I just want to release music that's going to glorify God, but then you're upset when your music doesn't make it to radio or you don't get that stellar nomination. You didn't have realistic expectations. And so I think having realistic expectations in place allows you to be successful enough to say, hey, I need to learn and research what it's going to take for the success that I feel I can maintain and I can manage. You know what I mean? And so as Omega said, we look at the different levels of it. Grew up in church. I'm a church baby. I'm a PK. And so God is with me even in the marketplace, but I'm not speaking in tongues when I'm in the boardroom, right? It may be word of wisdom and word of knowledge that's flowing out of me at that point, but I'm given specific instructions that they can follow. It is imperative that artists, whether you are the worship leader or whether this is a career, you have to learn the language of the rooms that you said God is calling you to. And so that's not just the church lingo. That's not just, feeling like I'm supposed to be a cheerleader at this. No. Are you on time? Are you nice? Are you approachable? Do you understand ministry outside of you being on stage? And then from a stage perspective, what's your presentation that not just you're giving to God, but you're giving to people. You sound amazing, but your show is boring. You're said I can get up and go to the bathroom and I can network while you're up because you're not giving me anything but a voice. And so knowing those avenues in which you're saying that you are called to, you have to learn that language. You have to learn the people, which means we go back to the environment. How do you properly manage the environment? I don't need you on stage exhorting for 10 minutes if you got a 15-minute set and you're an artist, right? I need you to allow your music to do what it needs to do in that moment. In the same respect, as a worship leader, you have to know how to introduce music to your audience. You have to know that environment. And it's not knocking what we see now and what everybody is doing, but I believe that every church has a sound that's authentic to that house. And so who you are as a artist may not fit in the capacity of who they are as a church. And so learning that balance and learning how to navigate. So it starts with the expectation of self. What are your goals? What are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? If you see this career as a worship leader or a music director or a minister of music, whatever it may be, what's your tenure? Because we know that you're not going to be there forever. What are you putting in place? Because even in that, there needs to be some type of succession. There needs to be some type of, ecosystem in that's in place, that when you do drop your album, you're not gone for, a whole month and now the church is unbalanced while you're promoting that album that you've just released after 3 years. So I think that's the place to start with anybody is what is your expectation and being realistic. You can speak in tongues later, but what's realistic? What is success for you? And then learning how to maintain and navigate that success.
Yeah, this is good. I want to just touch on some things that each of you have said, and it's funny that we had not had a conversation, but you all are saying the same things. Jamel, you mentioned that really, and a lot of what you all have said is just knowing oneself, doing an assessment of yourself. Jamel, you mentioned not every worship leader is an artist, and not every artist is a worship leader. And we are mixing that. We are muddying the waters because we have people in positions that should not be there. Omega, you mentioned about knowing the ecosystem, knowing the environment, because when you don't, then you end up failing people. And we have a lot of leaders who are failing people because their motive and their intentions of why they do what they do is in the wrong place, or because they have not been put in a position yet where they've been trained. We've just put people in place based on talent. We put the best person, the best talented, most talented person that we can afford in position. And then Tamil, you mentioned as well that managing yourself, doing an assessment of yourself, getting a hold of this arrested development before you get in a leadership position of dealing with 40 and 50 people, dealing with this church hurt or this brokenness before you get into a position where you got to manage other people's humanity and does not have the dexterity, spiritual dexterity to differentiate between the humanity and the gift.
Yeah.
That you don't punish people because they had a fall and mix the gift with their personhood. So this is great that you all have shared those things, and I hope that everyone here is getting something out of this and writing this down from these people that have been in the industry and have worked with people from all over the world. What is it that you see? And I'll just throw this out to you, Omega, and then everyone else can jump in. You talked about this a little bit, Tamil. When artists are put in position where they're doing ministry at a local church, one of the things that concerns me is we spend too much time focusing on how much we're getting paid than assessing the environment. But what is one of the responsibilities of artists who are put in position of a worship leader at a ministry? What should some of the things they should be doing to edify and strengthen those singers behind them?
I think the first thing first is, outside of seeing Christ as the center and him being the central nervous system for why we function and thrive in habitats the way that we do. The second thing is to show them how to be an effective steward by modeling the template of what it is to be an entrepreneur and a business acumen coming into this relationship with the church. Because inevitably, no matter how much we like to frown upon the conversations about worship pastors, worship leaders having salaries or being salaried, at the end of the day, there's still an infrastructure within the context of the church etiquette called church business. And there are church businesses and church practices that we must put in place. I think what has failed many worship leaders, worship pastors, is that there's not been enough language that's been parceled effectively and disseminated from the top down or within the ecosystem that makes it make sense. I think that we fail to realize a lot of times that when we come into these platforms or come into these spaces or ecosystem habitats, if you will, that some of these people that we're serving have been there before we got there, right? There are some individuals who will show up as a result of us being there because of our presence and hopefully our impact that we've been able to garner by effectively stewarding our relationships within the area that we're being called to. However, I think at the end of the day, the most important part is being able to understand that you've been placed in this position to serve. One of my favorite hymns is called "A Charge to Keep I Have," and it says, "To serve this present age, my calling to fulfill," which is simply my life supply to fulfill. And I think that inevitably, when we stand before people, we must understand that before standing before people, we stand with people. And being able to model that and build real relationship and be intentional about saying that I'm not just here for the check. The check is a part of why I'm here, but the check is not the basis of why I'm here. Especially when you're connected to ministries who have evangelism outside of what their normal practices or normal worship services are. Ministries that are driven by philanthropy and that have impact in the community and have a political presence. I think that we fail to realize that, understanding that all of those dynamics, all of those pieces make up the anatomy of what the church represents, both in the kingdom of God and in the marketplace. And I think that if we get to a place where we understand that the marketplace is just as necessary for the kingdom of God as the church is for the body of Christ, that we'll get to a healthier place of seeing more entrepreneurs rise to the occasion. Unfortunately, we've not taught people how to do business well. And the Bible says, the word of the Lord says, for those of us that are believers, that when we are in business, we should act as men, which means we should have character that is exemplified in the work that we display and work that we do. That is, i.e., no different than what we call modern day discipleship. And so I think that we've got to get to a place where we start to do discipleship differently, especially when it comes down to helping people to understand the platform presence that they occupy week to week, day by day in the general markets that they serve at their local assemblies.
And you know what? I want to piggyback off of that, because I think conversations need to be had when you hire. And that's in any department. What is your expectation? Like when if it's a church, if it's another label, if it's artists, no matter who calls me, you're calling me because you know that I'm the answer. But if you don't tell me what the problem is, I can't solve it. Right? So let's have conversation. What is your expectation in hiring me for this house? What is the vision that you see or you have for the music ministry? How can music ministry help when it comes to evangelism and discipleship and outreach? Do I need to be trying to hire two bands so that we have this band that, handles this aspect and then this? You have to have conversations, and then you have to practice autonomy, right? You have to understand team does not have an I in it. And so I don't care how good you are. I don't care how skilled you are. I don't care if you are the prophetic answer of the age. You still need a team to help you build out a lot of times we're building inward instead of building outward. And so we need to understand that we don't, need to micromanage. If we're coming in, there are people that were possibly there before us. And then there are people, like you said, Mike, that comes in with us and that they follow us. So how do we develop teams, plural, that can fit the vision and the mission of the house? A lot of audits that I do, especially on the music side, the minister of music or that worship leader was hired to do a job and was never given a job description. And so now they've built, right? And it's expanded, but then the infrastructure can't hold capacity of what it is that's been built. Okay, so then what is your vision? And when the pastor starts sharing in that meeting, it's like, I never knew that. What you told me to do was, but the expectations were not explained, right? And so conversations are needed. And I think that they need to happen yearly. There should be some type of vision casting that is happening in ministry, because I doubt very seriously that you are in the same place. Here we are in March of 2024 that you were in March of 2019. And if you were, then I submit to you, are you doing what you're supposed to do if there hasn't been any growth?
Yeah, you know what? I want to jump in real quick before I get to you, Jamel, to solidify your point. And I don't want to necessarily talk about me, but I gotta highlight something. Your point of assessment is so key. I was minister of music, a pastor of worship at 3 institute churches. And before each church, before I even discussed pay or was officially hired or announced, I did at least 2 to 3 months minimum of assessment. I went, sat in the back of the church and watched, took notes, wasn't introduced. I sat on the last row and met with the pastor or the executive pastor several times. No conversations was about money. It was about assessing, finding out what the problems are, what the issues are, sharing what I see, sharing what's going on. I did a 25-page executive summary at Valley Kingdom, a 36-page executive summary at All Nations, and I did a 27-page executive summary for New Life and turned it in. My first meeting was at every ministry was with the prayer leader, the person that was over the intercessors, not the music director, not the worship leader, not the artist that they were trying to hire to bring in, not the dance leader. And you're absolutely right, Tamil. You have to do an assessment to find out if you can be that location's peace. Because what peace means is that you are the answer. I had someone tell me 2 weeks ago, well, you can't be someone's answer. Yes, you can. Well, if you can't be an answer to someone, then you're not a leader. Because a leader is supposed to provide answers. It's supposed to solve problems. So you first need to know, am I the person to even be able to do it? Can I do it? Are you going to allow me to do it? Or do you just want my name? Are you going to allow me to do it? Can I do it? Am I going to have the tools to do it? Am I going to have the voice to do it? Am I going to have the authority to fix it? So you're absolutely right with doing assessment. And yes, every year in January, I did a PowerPoint presentation with the entire music ministry to set goals, to set benchmarks. Even if we didn't accomplish them, we were striving for something. Everybody knew what direction we was going into. Go ahead, Jamel.
Man, listen, this is a legit masterclass. Like, the three of you on this call is just blessing my life. So, I mean, I don't want to reiterate some of the things I heard, but I live by two, or I lead by two. I guess what I lead with my hands open. And so when I say this to people, that posture is, okay, I am here to build another me. You know what I mean? And so I would say to, even worship leaders, understand when you take on a job, they hired you to build the ministry. that was the reason, whether it was from a marketing standpoint or a legit development standpoint. Your job is to build more of you. And if you're not humble enough to lead with your hands wide open, and that means give everything you have to somebody that you see has the potential. And you cannot be scared of that, because that is your job in the local church. That's how you, number one, give yourself away. William McDowell said it. Give yourself away, and that's what you're doing. You're giving yourself away, leading with your hands open. I'm not threatened. It actually motivates me to say, I see this little kid, this guy that is amazing. I'm not worried about giving him the front seat, because that's how I secure my own seat. Because that shows your pastor and your executive team that your heart is to develop the ministry and not about develop your pockets, you know. And then my other posture is okay, so we understand that volunteers, they run the majority of our church ministries.
Mhm.
If you want to be honest, let's talk about it. Like, volunteers, they don't take a check, but volunteers has bona fide careers. They have jobs, and they go put in 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and then they come to the church to serve the church. The last thing I want a volunteer to do is outwork me. That is a complete no-no in my book. If I'm the leader, I'm going to outwork everybody, because I'm trying to show them, like, okay, this is the posture of a leader. Is to not be afraid of the hard work. I love what you guys were saying. Answers. I got answers, but I'm also that guy that says, you know what? Your answer may be better than mine.
Right.
So I'll trust you enough as someone that I'm directing to allow your your understanding and your idea to come into fruition. I'm not threatened by the least bit being the leader. And so I think it's a matter of being humble and understanding, like, I'm there for the purpose of this church, not to be, I mean, of course, our talents lend to the church. That's just why they call us, but that is not the only thing. And if you don't have that in the forefront of your mind, you're going to have a hard time finding tenure at a church, because they're going to see through it all. And then you'll be looking for a new church in less than a year. And so I just want to make sure, I'm clear. Like, don't let your volunteers outwork you, and learn how to lead with your hands open. Be confident in what God has given you and give it away.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Jamel. One of the reasons why, and I taught on this last week, and I'm not going to get back into it, but the spiritual thing that we deal with as creatives, Levitical priests, is because we're dealing with a rejection issue that is inherent in creatives, innate in creatives and Levitical priests, because of where we were birthed from. And if we don't deal with that, then our position becomes our identity. And then when it becomes our identity, then we can't build people up and edify and strengthen people, or look for replacements, or build succession, because our position and our talent becomes our identity. And so we're never able to pour back. And you're absolutely right. Jason, I love that comment that you put up, that Dr. Miles Monroe said that the greatest leaders make themselves unnecessary. And that is absolutely true, because you should build something up so strong to that if you can miss 2 or 3 Sundays and nobody know you're not there. If it falls apart when you're not there, then you're not building. You're not edifying. You're not strengthening, because you've built it around you. And that old system of the Pentecostal paradigm of building it around one person, that's over with. You gotta be able to build it and strengthen it to where it will stand, whether you're there or not. They'll just miss you being there. Hey, Elder Dwayne, Pastor Dwayne, good to see you. They will miss you being there, but they won't miss what you do being there.
I got a story, Michael, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So there was a tech director at a church. The tech director knew all things, but the tech director never taught anything to anybody. And so he built a system to only accommodate himself. And when this man passed away, there was nobody even available or knew how to turn on the sound system, turn on the lights of the church. I mean, to his demise, like we couldn't even celebrate you because he didn't know how to give himself and teach everything that he had, you know. And so I agree 100%. You know, yeah, we're doing a disservice to the church by holding on to everything. So
Yeah, and the
And
other part. Oh, go ahead,
real,
Tamil.
I think that also it's the spirit of the leader also,
Mhm.
right? And it's especially prevalent in the Black church, where if the pastor's not there, the church falls apart.
mm,
And you know, if you know the pastor not there, then you're not going. You're not even
you
going
know,
to tune
come
in
on.
online, right? There's a ministry that I love dearly, Destiny in Jackson, Tennessee. Apostles Danny and Rhonda Pettigrew. Like they've been on vacation all week. They did not go to church Sunday morning. They got on the plane to fly to their destination, and church ran smoothly. It wasn't no, the pastors are not here, so we're going to do this, that, and the other. They have other people that teach Bible study. Like they build a culture and an
Culture.
ecosystem that says, I'm not just the only voice you're going to hear. However,
Mhm.
I've created echoes that knows how to be my voice, or the shepherd boys, if you will. Like you don't just see a shepherd tending sheep. There are shepherd boys that are
Yep.
dressed like the shepherd. Their staff is similar to the shepherd. It just doesn't have the hook on it. And they even practice their tone and their cadence of their voice to sound exactly like the shepherd. So the sheep that knows their voice, right, knows the voice of the shepherd, even if it's coming from an echo. And so I think it also starts with the leadership being open and not micromanaging and allowing people to do the job that you've either hired them for because you're paying them. And Tamel, I'm of the mind that if you are a volunteer, you have now been hired by God. So I still expect that same level of professionalism from you, even though you're not getting a check.
I wanna jump in right there, Tamil. You said something earlier and you bypassed it so quickly, but I journaled it. I made a quick note. We say this a lot on lives and activations like this. We always say that there is no I in team, but there is an I in investment. And more often than not, investment starts with those of us that are in leadership, that's in organizational leadership and structure, right? And so again, it goes back to the power of assessing a thing and then knowing how to properly invest. Where you put yourself, how you position yourself will dictate and determine how the room reacts and responds to you, which is how we then begin to build and identify culture and subsequently community as well. And so I think that that's where we have to get to. It goes back to, again, the basis of what Tamil said at the very beginning. It's all about the language. It's about communication. It's about a conversation. It's about us being able to sit down and have real intentional conversations around the fact that we lack knowledge when it comes to our responsibilities and how we're supposed to serve and render our service in our local assemblies, as well as in the music industry as well. So I don't want to disregard that as well, because there are a lot of artists who don't understand the mechanics of the business, which is why so many of them have been robbed and so many are bitter and broken and frustrated and angry and mad, and they may not be the most kind because again, more often than not, you don't know. I think Justin Foster made a post earlier today, pardon me. He said, you don't know what it took for a person to show up and be present, right? You don't know what it took for an artist to show up and be present, just as much as we don't know what it takes for a pastor to show up and be present and to invest themselves beyond the paycheck, beyond, you know, the hollering and the screaming and the speaking in tongues and the gifts that that we see administered in the house and in church. And so I think that once we get back to the basis of being Christ-centered and then being intentionally placed within culture, I think we'll start to see a different impact within our said community.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Omega. Thank you for that, Tamil and Jamel, your commentary on that particular subject. I hope you all are being blessed. If you all have any questions, you can go ahead and put those in the chat. I'm going to get to them at some point if you want these great leaders to be able to answer anything that you may have personally. Listen, I want to ask just quickly, just a quick answer, your thoughts on this. I know one of the new movements now that we're having, and I'm not against it. So let me preface that before I say it. We're having a lot of artists uh, that are being hired as worship leaders. It is my thought that the Black church needs to explore residencies more, that we should have artists come in on a 3 or 4 month consignment, sing, but then maybe spend a Saturday training those worship leaders, those volunteers that have been holding up the ministry and that are going to continue to hold it up, to pour back some of what's in you into them. This is what happened when God commanded Moses to get his leaders. He said, bring them to the tent of meetings, and then I'm going to allow you to put some of what's in you in them. We don't have enough transferring going on. And what are your thoughts on residencies? I feel like we should, when an artist may have a low point in their touring or a lower point in their recording schedule, that they can come on for 60, 90 days every week and just pour into a singer, pour into those worship leaders, make them better, improve them. Yeah, you can sing, but teach them about stage presence, teach them about etiquette, teach them about arranging. What are your thoughts on that?
I honestly think that should not be something that's just happening once a month or once every 90 days or once. I think that should come within the context of what you're teaching as you're teaching worship, period.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you quoted the text about, and God spoke to the priests and told them to bring the people to the temple, to the tent of meeting, I think the first we have to identify is that God was the head, right? And so because God spoke, there was divine obedience and there was order and protocol and alignment that was established. I think it goes back again to the very basis of what Tamil said. Again, it's just about being able to have a healthy conversation around what we are enabling in our cultures, in our community. What are we given the permission to actually be within the space of our worship services? I think that once we start to identify that in a more intentional capacity, residencies will be of the norm for what we'll be seeing happening in churches, because we'll have so many artists that are coming back to the Lord, that will be coming back to our local assemblies to worship, that will be able to navigate that and steward that differently. I think that we've not learned how to properly steward personalities in church, which is why we have so many complexes. We don't really know who we're serving, and we don't know what we can do with what we do have, because there are personality complexes, because we've not properly communicated that what you have is welcome here. What you bring to the table is welcome here. Some worship pastors don't know that they can shape and mold other worship leaders that are serving with them, because they've not been given that permission from their pastors and leaders, right? And so it goes back to being intentional about having relationship at the top. What happened in the Old Testament and in the New Testament when it came down to priests and how they served the Lord and served people was that they had proper release. They had proper release. They had proper language. They had proper understanding. They knew how to dress. They knew what to wear. They knew when to be positioned. They understood the festivals and the times. They knew the seasons in which to engage culture from different perspectives. And I don't think that we've done an effective job with giving a creative alliance or a creative voice in our house or in our worship houses, so that this creative energy can thrive and can have a space. Because most pastors are focusing on one or two things more so. A lot of pastors, I won't say all pastors, a lot of pastors are focused more so on how do we have the structure for this service, how do we get the people what they need, and how can we get out of here on time, right? They're not necessarily always in the space of being what is considered a creative director for our worship services. And so I think that with this spectrum of artistry, if you will, we must be willing to understand that everybody and every artist also doesn't bring that to the table. Every artist isn't a mentor. Every worship leader also isn't a mentor. Some worship leaders you learn from afar. There's some of the greatest leaders that I've had the privilege to have access to in the world that I don't have direct relationship with, but I've been close enough in proximity that I've been able to glean enough to grow enough and to build and become as a result. And so I think that we should give our people the permission that even if our leaders don't possess it, that the investment, again, it goes back to that you being able to discern and know what you need and what you have and how to then invest it in that next community or in the community that you're serving.
Yeah.
And the reason,
Go ahead.
oh, we are. Go ahead. You got it. Ladies first.
What I was going to say is, and I'm gonna pick up from where he kind of like trailed off his coda. Every leader is not a boss, right? Just like every boss is not an entrepreneur. You have to know your capacities and not just take a job because it's a steady check. That's the main thing to start with, because you are going to be responsible for more personalities than just you. You know what I mean? A lot of times we focus on the fact when it comes to Elias, putting down the oxen and following after Elijah. But do you pay attention that he was actually dealing with oxen in the field, which means he had to already deal with the different personalities of the oxen that he was working with in the field, that I think that gave him the capacity when he was now in lead, that he knew how to navigate those personalities and what he was doing and how he was doing it. And so we have to know our capacity, right? We have to know what we're good at. We have to know what our strengths are beyond singing and holding a note and beyond making the people shout. And be honest enough that if that's not you, I don't mind coming in and being a singer and then assisting whoever actually gets hired to do the job of the worship leader or the worship pastor or the pastor of worship, music, and arts, or the creative director, because since the pandemic, a lot of these roles have become intertwined. And so you're not just responsible for one lane of music. You're responsible, if you will, for the entire production, but you don't know anything about lighting. You don't know anything about cameras. You haven't learned anything about sound, but you're responsible for these people. And so what happens if I have a CPA that's working sound and he doesn't know what he's doing? In that role and in that position, I'm supposed to be able to tell him, take the bass out and show him what it is that he needs to do. So I think that that's imperative in moving forward and being realistic and saying, hey, I'm qualified to do this and I'm qualified to do this much. You possibly need to consider somebody else to handle this. It's like a person that has a choir and a congregation that follows them, but they don't know how to teach songs. How are you a choir director? You're just in it now for the fame and for the potential that you can make. You're not in it to reproduce after your own kind. And so I think that's a key component, is if this is a career for you, there are job qualifications, there are job descriptions, there is eligibility that you need to be able to adhere to and share so that you can do, like Jamel said, we need to be reproducing. I'm always looking for my next. I'm looking for the one who's going to retire me, right? Yeah. One of my longtime mentors is on here watching, Gina Waters Miller, and she used to joke with me about, I want you to be so good you take my job. Well, you know, as a mentee, we like, but when you understand what that means I trust you. Mm-hmm. I know your character. You have been around me long enough that just from proximity alone, I see your worth, me pouring and investing me into. And I want you to be so good that you become my teacher. Yeah. And in the Black church, we don't always have that because, again, like Mike said, that identity becomes, this is all we know. This is who you know. But who are you outside of your gift? Who are you outside of this platform? And what are you outside of the check?
Yeah, before you go, Jamel, I want to just mention something really quick. Everything that you're hearing tonight, if you have not, I want you, if you're not doing it for yourself, do it for someone else, to go to Purpose to Pour to register. Everything that they're saying will be addressed in these 5 weeks. I'm giving out templates, worship leader performance appraisals, executive summary templates, syllabus, job descriptions, auditions, templates, rubrics.
Wow.
Do you know that auditions are biblical?
Mhm.
Whosoever will, let him come was not talking about the praise team. So you need these things. You got to do more than flap your arms, grab the mic and squall and sing and tear your voice up for 15 minutes. You got to do more than just deal with the prophets and deal with the intercessors and say, pray.
Mhm.
How are you leading and building up that department? The leadership tools apply to every area. So you need templates. You need things that you need. You need systems. You need to be able to build systems. So these are the things that we're going to be doing in Purpose to Pour, and you need to go to that website. Go ahead, Jamel.
So I'll keep it short, Michael. So I would say I would lean this back over to the artist, and it may go a little left, but I want you to hear me in love. And so I would say, artists, you have to understand that you have to, let's just be real. You got to protect your investment. The church is your marketplace. That's who's buying your record. That is who's booking you. And so if we don't know how to give back to the church, then what are we even doing? What are we even doing? That is our marketplace, which is the church. And so, I mean, show up at church, lend your services, do a free weekend. I mean, I just really feel like that's something that artistry, we forget was we forget about the church. And that is the last thing God gave us the gift for, is to forget about his church. The church is his bride. And that's the thing that he loves the most, and he's given our talents to lend to the church. And so I would even challenge us is just being real as an artist, protect your investment and give back to the church.
You're
100%.
absolutely right, Jamel. I did a teaching. I was asked to speak at Jordan Baker's, one of the worship leaders that sat under me at All Nations, did a concert, and he asked me to come and open up, and it was a lot of worship leaders in the room, and I shared with them that records God allows is reward and recompense. Royalties, records, and residuals are recompense for the resolve of the worship leader for ministering in the temple.
Hmm.
God allows us to do that. He allows us to capitalize on the gospel, and it should be recompense for what we have poured out. But when we don't look at it properly and we prostitute it wrong and our motives is wrong, then we end up with a lot of artists who are broken, who are the word that I want to use is they are, I don't want to say prostituted, but the industry will manipulate them because their motives are not right, because their intent is not right, and because they have not been edified correctly. We have to look at the commercial side of it, because we are pushing a word, the gospel that belongs to God. It is recompense. The royalties and residuals is recompense for what we have done for our service in the temple. There's a few questions that they've asked, if you all can answer. This comes from Jason Davis. Any of you all could jump in. He said, how important is it for worship leaders to know how to properly handle the hearts of people, both on and off the stage? Is there anything you want to give to that?
I'll just say one thing: empathy. Empathy. You have to care genuinely, and you have to know your congregation. So that means you're walking the hallways and you're getting to know who you are ministering to, because there are people out there losing family members, you know cancer, sick, you know, you don't have the empathy because you don't know them. And so if you know your church, you can have empathy for them and you can serve them better as a worship leader. You can speak to them almost directly in your worship time.
And you know what? I do want to do something real quick because there's an excuse that I don't like because I am one of those people. I am very much an introvert. I am an INTJ to be exact, right? But my personality does not hinder my purpose.
That's right.
Mhm.
That means with my introverted self, I still know how to show up and be what I need to be in that moment. Now, I may need to decompress a little different, a little longer. However, we got to stop because we don't have personalities blaming it that you're an introvert. No, you're not an introvert. You're just antisocial, right? You don't know how to communicate. You don't know how to talk. So it's important that you have the empathy. You have a personality beyond your gift because that's when people get to see your character and that's when they learn your heart.
I'll piggyback there and say two things. I'll sum mine up with awareness and agility. I think that is the most key component when it comes down to being on and off of a stage, period, is understanding that no atmosphere is going to be the same. That no culture is going to be the same. And I don't care how much you engage the same set of people week in, week out, everybody's going to have a different moment of an identity crisis, if you will, or an identity compound. And you've got to come into it knowing that you're in the business of people. Whenever we do customer care, these positions are customer care positions, right? Tamil spoke about Gina Miller, who has been an advocate for us both and has held us both down in so many capacities. That's one of the things that she speaks about most. And so I just think that understanding that walking into any opportunity dealing with people, period, you have to have an awareness that people are people and you have to be agile because people need people.
Yes. Two things really quick on things that you said. First of all, I do want to acknowledge Gina Miller, who is a giant in this industry and who's always helped me through my music career. And so I want to say thank you and all the great things that you're doing and the impact that you're making. You're doing an amazing job. And Gina, keep up the great work. Jamel, you said something so key is empathy. If you're going to be a leader over people, you need empathy. Most people know that you can't solve their problems. They just want to know that you care.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons why I was effective, I feel I was effective as a leader, and I say that humbly. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a legitimately humble person. But I feel like I was effective in the areas because I cared about the people off the stage, outside of the assignment. Checked on their kids, checked on how they were doing at work, checked on how their marriages are going. Notice when they were sick. Notice when they weren't looking their best. Dealt with their issues and did not condemn them or judge them or look at them differently. Was a safe space for them to talk about things. People just want to know that you care about them. And so that's very key, Jamel, what you said about having empathy. Creatives, well, all people need it, but particularly creatives who are doing a heavy job of volunteering. Because we're the ones that's really holding up that ministry. We're the pylons under the stage that's keeping it up.
Mhm.
You know, and that's why you need to build your music ministry and your creative department in a true Davidic model with teams. When you look at the temple, there were 24 teams or 24 courses that rotated.
Mhm.
And if your church has the ability to sustain teams, you need to build teams. It should not be one praise team. It should not be one choir. It should not be one dance ministry. It should be a rotation because rest is currency. And so if you can build in rest with your teams, you can't pay everybody, but you can pay them in rest.
Kenya.
You can pay them in rest. Most volunteers don't want to check in the first place. We overstate that so much. Most
You're
people
right.
that are doing what they're doing are not looking for a check. They're just looking for somebody to be concerned. Thank you, Gina. So we have another question, and we can be on here for 2 hours, so we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna have y'all not in church that long, so we're not gonna have y'all on here this long. We had a question from Brandon who asked, and I think this has been answered before, but if one of you all want to mention this, answer this. How do you position yourself to receive impartation effectively so that you can also be able to lead effectively?
Serve. Simplest answer, serve. I don't think we should ever get to a point that we are not serving. I don't care what title I have, what position I have. What does that house need from me in that moment? Is who I am. It may not be Apostle sitting in the pulpit. It may be Tamil in the sound booth. It may be Tamil on the camera, right? It may be Tamil fixing a plate. It does not take away from what I've been confirmed as in the kingdom. Some of the greatest impartations that I have ever received, hands were never laid on me. I received impartation from being in the room, the wisdom that was shared. And I was smart enough and humble enough to be quiet in that room because it was generals talking and it was people that I can learn from talking. And so in the simplest form, serve.
Got it. Thank you. We have another question from John, and we'll be wrapping up in about 10 minutes, everyone. So just hold on. John says, how have we trained ministers or ministries to deal with narcissists, both in leadership and in minstrels? So anybody want to, how are we helping deal with narcissists? Or let me rephrase the question.
No, I want to deal with it.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, we have to actually stop throwing that word around because everybody is not narcissistic.
There you go.
In the Black culture, most times, especially depending on your denominational tie and how you came up, you did not have help. So there was no help to assist you. And a lot of times you have people who had to do everything themselves prior to the position, right? And I would much rather do it myself because I know it's going to be done right. As opposed to, am I going to trust you? Am I going to be vulnerable enough to give it to you and take my hands off? So I think that's the main thing is everybody is not a narcissist, right? Everybody is not an opportunist even, and everybody is not controlling. Some people are the way that they are because they had to be that. And now you want me to oftentimes, and I can say this from years in this in ministry and marketplace, there are people who have not proven themselves that feel that they are entitled to what it is that we're doing. It goes back to serving, winning the heart, learning the heart, and then duplicating the heart of that leader. And if you happen to actually cross someone that's a narcissist, then at that point, you have to ask yourself, why did God place me here? Because you very well could be the key to the deliverance that's needed for the entire house.
May I also add to Apostle Tamil, that was really good, like being very intentional about being able to identify how you become an answer or an antidote for such in a house. I think that we fail to realize that we go to our jobs more days out of the week than we go to church. And we have dealt with more narcissists in our workspaces than we deal with in our churches. And I think that same character that we exemplify when we're in the marketplace, serving, rendering unto Caesar that which is Caesar, I think that we have to have the same attitude that when we serve the Lord with gladness again, that we render unto God that which is his. And so it's seeing people through the lens of God, or seeing the people through the lens of Christ every single time you engage them, which is exactly what artists do. You know, it's like bringing you or inviting you into a space that I've been intentional about taking this canvas and creating something that is connected to my identity. I think that we fail to realize also that in church, in the kingdom of God, you have identities, and there are crises that come with identities. If we really deal with the purpose of the church is a crisis prevention center. If we really want to be honest about it, people come to church because they're looking for answers, but it's more often because the real root of them needing answers is that they have problems. And so if you're not in a problem-solving position, you don't need to be having any kind of placement in church, especially when it comes to leadership.
So good.
Absolutely. This is good. This is great. So listen, go ahead, Jamel, did you have something or? Okay. One last question and then we're going to close out, and then I'm going to ask everyone to share what's next and put your websites in the chat. If you all could do that now, that'd be great. Jason has a very good question. Jason, you've asked about like 6 questions tonight, so I've given you 3 of them. So, but great, Jason. I love you guys. You know, I'm just playing. I think this is a great question. He wants all of us to answer this. As far as ministry, kingdom work, if you could talk to yourself from 10 years ago, what would you say?
I'll say intentionally grow. The last thing I want to do is look back 2 years ago and say, I'm that same Jamel. And so when you're growing, you have to make sure you put yourself in uncomfortable positions in order to grow. You know, so growing is not supposed to feel comfortable. It's not supposed to be something that you can just fly by and reap the benefits of it. You have to go, what makes a diamond is pressure, but you have to allow yourself to go through that pressure season so that you can grow, you know. But I think we have a fear of what's next. And so I would say, don't worry about the next season. Just plow through this season and be a good steward of it. But at the same time, take every opportunity to grow and learn from every mistake, win, or anybody that's giving you constructive criticism.
Tamil?
That one kind of made me a little emotional.
Mm-hmm.
I
It
would
did for me
tell-
too.
I would tell Tamil to take every risk because you are absolutely the solution. And it's not that I'm conceited. I'm very confident in who God made me to be. And the confidence that I have now, I think if I would have had that 10 years ago, oh my gosh, like whoo. So, you know, be willing to take the risk. Trust your dopeness. Understand that you are the answer. And also I would tell creatives this: stop telling God that He made a mistake by second guessing what it is that He's called you to do and who He's called you to be. He's
Good.
given it to you for a reason, right? And there is someone in the earth that is waiting for you to be the answer, whether it's for you to write that book, whether it's for you to release that single, whether it's for you to step out and start a mentorship program. You are somebody's answer. And so every time you second guess, every time you procrastinate and try to, you know, get it together and things of that nature, you're literally telling God He made a mistake. I'm at a point in my life as Tamil in this place of learning this new Tamil that if I dream it, I'm moving like that, because as quick as I move is as quick as God provides what's needed.
Omega, you want me to go and then you go last, or you?
No, I'm however you want to do it, brother.
I'll go and then you can go, and then I'll have you guys wrap up. So, first of all, I want to acknowledge Mr. Blaylock Karan. Hello, thanks for being on, brother, and the Duchess of Gospel, L.A. Reed, L.A. not Reed. What did I say? L.A. Lavanja Hubbard.
Lavanja Hubbard.
L.A. That's what I was trying to say. So, we love you, Lavanja. You have been a staple. And your voice still resonates strong. So we love you. We appreciate you. I'm gonna be transparent real quick. So if I could talk to myself 10 years ago, what would I say? One of the things I dealt with 10 years ago, I struggled with the fear of man for a little bit because I went through a divorce, and my wife recently passed 2 years ago of cancer. 3 years ago, the day I actually got ordained pastor at New Life, and then I had to go home and tell my daughter that her mom was gone. We had been trying to call her in the hospital for 3 days and couldn't get to her. Worst day of my life. But when we went through a divorce, I was so hurt and concerned. I felt like I had failed. I was condemning myself. I was beating myself up. And I was too concerned about what people thought. And my dad had to minister to me, and he said, Michael, don't let these church folks send you to hell. And I started getting better. People divorce, people break up. And just because people are married don't mean that they're happy. Just because people are still together. And I had to get through that. And if I would have talked to myself 10 years ago, I would have said that to myself, because I stopped a lot of things. I stopped some things, purpose to Portia, that happened a long time ago. So that's one thing. So I hope that ministers to somebody. If you don't let life's issues or humanity or things that you go through in life hinder, you are still called. You are still who you are. Your assignment has not changed because something happened. So that's what I would say. All right, go ahead, Omega.
Well, I'll keep mine really simple. You went down a path that I was planning to go, but I will simply say it's 3 things. It would be grieve, rest, and don't stop. Yeah. Those 3 things. Grieve, rest, and don't stop.
Yeah. Yep. This is great. So, listen, what are you all doing? What you got coming up? Jamel, what you got? What's next?
What's next, man? I'm talking about like an imprint, and so I'm ready to step out there and build my own house. So God has called me to, serve everyone and serve their visions, and now He's got me at a season where I have something to say, and so I want to say it. So just expect some new music from me. Of course, other artists. I love artists, indie, uh, Indian and major artists, but I got something to say. So just be on the lookout for that.
Man, this is great, man. So you got to tell them that maybe about 3% of what you have learned over the years, from me and Daniel. So you can go ahead and just say that, so I can get at least a little royalty off the next song you release with Todd. So
Listen,
I'm just
y'all
kidding.
have no idea. Michael and Daniel, I watched them as a kid because, well, my claim to fame, I'm gonna use this. My parents are pastors, and they used to use Daniel and Michael's recording studio for our church services. And so we would be in Bible studies, and I could not forget the Bible at that point. I'm trying to sneak over there to the studio to hear Daniel and Michael record and bring in artists and produce music. So that's my claim to fame to the Weatherspoons. Although our parents are best friends.
Yes.
A lot of people don't know that either. Our parents are very best friends. And to this day, right now.
Yeah, man, I just want to say to you, Jamel, you are doing an outstanding job. Man, I just
Thank you,
love
brother.
what you're doing. I always in anticipation of hearing your music. And man, you have surpassed anything that I have done, man. And I'm so happy to say that and proud to say that. And man, you're doing an amazing work. So I want you to keep it up. I want you to stay encouraged. I want you to keep releasing, keep producing, keep serving, keep putting out what we want to hear what you have to say, and we're looking forward to that.
Amen. Yep. Thank you, brother.
Camille, what's up next? What you got?
What's up next? There are 2 new publications that I'm working on that I'm looking at releasing come summer. One is The Digital Pastor, but it's not about just a pastor being online, how to properly have a hybrid ministry for in-person and for virtual space. And then I'm working on something specifically for creatives. And it's the introverted creative. Taking my life, my experience, my road, my journey, and putting that into some practical steps that will probably help the next person. We are getting ready to officially launch a network specifically for creatives in the summer. So I'm excited about all the new things that we are putting our hands to do.
Are you looking to do a teaching for paraministries?
I actually have a whole training that's
okay. I'm gonna send some people your way because I have a lot of people that are doing paraministries. They need structure. Okay. People are launching out, but I'm not sure if they've cast the vision properly. Yeah. So I'm gonna send some people.
A whole training specifically for paraministries, because I'm of the belief that even if you're solo, you need to be connected to a house. You need to have a pastor. You have to have some level of accountability in what it is that you're doing. You have to have some type of covering. So yeah, I have a whole thing for that.
Great. You all go to her website and download that. Get that now. If you're thinking about launching a ministry, you need to get that training and bring her in, especially senior pastor. She can help. Omega, what's the next for you, Prophet? I see you're doing a lot of prophetic ministry right now and teaching and training, but what's going on?
Well, that's really what's next for me. I'm just spending my life being a mobile institution, if you will, a training cohort, if you will. That's pretty much how I live my life, and then just making sure that I'm helping people get to the next space and next phase of their life, making it all make sense. So some ministry here the next couple of weeks. I'll be out in Louisiana and Alabama, but my day-to-day life is I'm 100% spending my time helping people's visions and plans come to life.
Awesome. All right. Thank you all. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed it. Jamel, I don't know if you saw this comment here from Jason. I don't know if you can see it. He said, Jamel told me something 2 years ago that stuck with me. He told me things in my life. He told me some things in life, and my life got so much better. And he just wanted to honor you for that.
Appreciate you, Jay. And I'm praying for you and your family, brother. I know you just lost your father, so my prayers are out there for you, my brother.
Yeah. Queenie Lennox, thank you so much. You are an amazing pillar in the gospel music industry. You need to do some trainings on how to support artists.
For sure.
You need to teach this next generation on how to support artists as a background singer, as a support, as a facilitator. That Lennox family is a strong name around the world, and you need to teach some of these singers. You need to grab a group of them by the neck and just say, you sitting under me, whether you want to or not. All right. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you. Thank you, Jamel. Thank you, Apostle Tamil and Prophet Omega. We're gonna you an executive leader now, Jamel. So we're gonna Minister Jamel. Is that what's happening? That's what it seems like to me.
No, ma'am. No,
it's interim. EP Jamel.
Interim only, brother. Interim only.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Make sure you all go to michaelweatherspoon.com. sign up. And thank you so much for every comment, every listener, every watcher, every participant. Thank you on tonight. Have
Love
a great
y'all.
evening.